everyone, and welcome to the Foxworth Theory. And I am your host, Eugenia Foxworth, and thank you for joining us today. And this show is about entertainment, business, fashion, and the arts. We're going to be talking to the movers and the shakers from all over the world, allowing them to tell their stories right here on the Foxworth Theory. In the world of journalism and broadcasting, one has to be able to navigate through many areas that are available to them in order to make a living and even have some success. It's no surprise when you see a top 40 radio DJ become a sportscaster, a newscaster become an author of a fiction or nonfiction, or a newspaper writer become a film or TV director. For women, and especially women of color, the navigation can be a bumpy ride, and ladies have to unfairly be much more on point than their male counterparts, and in many cases, for far less pay. Our next guest has indeed been successful, wearing many hats in her work. A multi-award-winning journalist, radio host, and best-selling author. Flo Anthony was the first Black woman to work in the New York Post sports department, as well as the first Black person to work in the paper's entertainment department and the legendary Page Six. Flo currently hosts the daily syndicated radio feature, Gossip on the Go with Flo, the highway column in Dan's papers. She writes a weekly syndicated newspaper column, Go with the Flow, and publishes an online magazine, blacknoir.nbc. She also, not NBC, NYC. She also represents a 1976 Olympic medalist and former lightweight heavyweight champion, Michael Spinks. A graduate of Howard University, Flo is a member of Delta Sigma Theta sorority and resides in the Kit Space section of Manhattan in New York City. Her latest fiction novel, Last Call with a Deadly Diva, is now available. Flo Anthony, welcome to the show.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. Thank you for such a beautiful introduction. Thank you so much, Eugenia. I'm so happy to be here.
Wonderful. Now let's get started. How did you begin in the world of journalism?
You know, I always could write from a little kid. I would write plays and short stories. And when I got a little older into high school, I was the youth page reporter for the Ann Arbor News. I grew up in Ann Arbor, Michigan. And so it all just kind of came naturally to me. I really didn't want to be a journalist. I actually came to New York City to be an actress. But I worked, did quite a bit of work. But I started working for my manager, Toby Gibson, and that's how I kind of switched over into like PR and that type of work. And then I started writing columns. I wrote a column called Keep Punching, a sports column for the Black American newspaper. And that's how I got to the New York Post. They actually wanted to hire a Black woman to be the agate clerk in the sports department. That's the person that does like the basketball boxes and the hockey boxes and all those sorts of things. So the racing stuff that you see, all of the grid work. And so that's how I got to the New York Post, and it all just kind of grew from there.
Thank you. But when did you know that journalism was calling?
I guess when it just kind of happened, it was a regular job because I was teaching part-time. I was doing a lot of things to act. I started doing public relations for a lot of different boxers. I met this guy, Harold Weston. He was a contender. And at that time, he was working at the Garden, putting together boxing matches. And I had a cable show called Go With The Flow. And he had a guy, Ron Scott, had Eddie Mustafa Muhammad and Sal Mambi. Eddie Mustafa Muhammad at that time was the WBA light heavyweight champion, and Sal Mambi was the WBC super lightweight champion. And so I started doing PR for them, and that's how the whole sports thing grew, and the columns and everything. And it just kind of happened. You know, sometimes life has a different path for you than you planned for it. You know, God has other visions for you, and that's kind of what happened to my life. It just I was good at what I did, and you know, things just started to grow.
Okay, and on that note, can you mention any celebrity highlights that are the most memorable to the public?
Boy, there's so many. You know, I started out with this cable show also on Manhattan cable called Go With The Flow. And I met a gentleman, he passed away in the 80s. He was one of the early people to pass away from AIDS, James Johnson, a great mentor of mine. And so he saw my show, and he got me to interview Sylvester Stallone. And from there, I interviewed, oh my gosh, so many people. The great soccer player, Pelé. They were actually in the same movie, Stallone and Pelé. And those interviews, you know, I started doing all these A-list interviews with these people in my 20s. And it just grew from there. And every time I seemed to interview people, they became friends. I interviewed LaToya Jackson, and I had originally met the Jacksons in like I would say, late 70s at Disney World. It was LaToya, Michael, Randy, and Janet. And, you know, I knew her, but then when in the 90s, when we reconnected, early 90s, 90, 91, I went to Paris with her in 1992. We became best friends. Wynton Marsalis, I interviewed him, not interviewed him, I was introducing him to someone, but then he called me, he said, well, you know, you sound very nice. Maybe can I just talk to you sometime? You're very easy to talk to. So I would talk to these people and interview them, and they became my friends. So I've had a great career knowing celebrities. I mean, there's been a few downsides to a couple of people I didn't get along that great with, but you know, life goes on. But it's been a good career as a gossip columnist. I've tried not to do anybody any harm, put it that way.
I know that. I know that very well because I follow you now in a couple of the local papers. And
thank you.
You're welcome. In an era when women in sports journalism was rare and very few, how did you succeed in that arena, being one of the first ladies in the field?
Yeah, you know, at the New York Post, I really wasn't just the first Black woman in that sports department. I was the first woman. But I think part of it is because sports has always been part of my forte. My father played college football. Excuse me, I'm all nasally here. Played college football, actually not professional football, but his whole life revolved around football and sports. He called everybody a rookie or and everything. So I came out of this great sports household, and so sports was just on my forte. I love football. You know, football is still my passion. And then, you know, once I started working for these boxers and met all these boxers, you know, I began to love boxing. In fact, I'm being inducted into the 2022 National Boxing Hall of Fame, the first female journalist to be inducted into that Hall of Fame, because I represented 12 world champion boxers, and it's all kind of come full circle because, you know, I'm working with Michael now again, and we've done so well the last 5 years. So I think that I succeeded because of my passion for the sport. And then I went over to the entertainment department. They moved me over there And I was very upset about it. I felt that I had failed the entire Black community of New York City, that I couldn't be in the sports department. But they kept saying it's a better job, it's a day job, because at that time I worked 7 at night to 2 in the morning. It's more money. And they saw that I had a bachelor's degree in fine arts. So that's how I went over to entertainment department. And then I kept breaking stories. When Mike Tyson married Robin Givens, when Alec Baldwin and Kim Basinger got married, when John McEnroe and Tatum O'Neal even got married, I just kept breaking stories. And that's how they moved me over to the renowned Page Six.
Okay, so that actually is a partial question that I was going to ask you, because I wanted to know what story in particular did you do that you broke to the public that made a difference in your career? You've mentioned so many.
You know, Eugenia, it's too many to even mention, but when I was in the sports department as the ag clerk, my friend Otis Wilson played for the Chicago Bears. And that year, 1986, is when they went to the Super Bowl. And I was on the phone with him one night, and Jim McMahon, who was a quarterback at that time for the Chicago Bears, he had put Adidas logo on his headband, and the NFL fined him $5,000 for that. And so Otis said, you know, they fined that fool $5,000 for that. And I told them that at the sports department, and they right away, they jumped on it, and actually Page Six got that story. So right away, I was giving them breaking news. And I think my favorite thing that I broke was when Mike Tyson married Robin Givens, because I was at Spike Lee's premiere for School Days. And this person just came and they said, you know, Flo, Mike Tyson married Robin Givens in Chicago yesterday. I said, huh, what? They said, yeah, it's true. So right away, that was in the 80s too. So there was no cell phones too tough or anything, unless you saw them in New Jack City or something. I ran to the payphone, I called the Post and told them all this, and I got the front page, that next day. So, I mean, it just all happened like that. I've always been at the right place at the right time to hear these different things.
I think that's fabulous. And congratulations. I mean, this is very exciting. Now, how would you define yourself as a writer?
I like to call myself celebrity journalist, because I do so many things. I have the daily syndicated radio show, which every day I have to come up with 3 stories and write and record them and send them out to the stations, and the columns. And, I write fiction books. My 4th one, Last Call for a Deadly Diva, came out September the 28th. So that's all very exciting. So I just kind of call it celebrity journalist, because you just can't put everything, I work with Mike. I can't put it all, I had to find some kind of umbrella. So I put it all under celebrity journalists.
Great. I'm going to go and get The Deadly Diva on Amazon, I'm assuming.
Yeah, you get it a lot of places, actually. Amazon.com, Kindle, BarnesandNoble.com, Target, believe it or not, is actually in the store at Target. And you can get it on Target.com. And then there's, I think, Walmart.com. So it's available quite a few places. For now, I don't know why it's not in the Barnes and Noble store. I think they're working on it. But with BarnesandNoble.com, when you order it, it comes like in a couple of days. And in fact, I'm doing book signings all around town and everything. So it's a lot going on with it.
I am so excited. Now, you did mention you were born in Michigan?
Well, I was actually born in Mississippi. I was born in the infirmary at Alcorn State College. My grandmother died in January, and I was born in March, and my mother was still down there following my grandmother's death, and my aunt and uncle both taught at Alcorn State. So after I was born, because it was too much for Mama to travel back to Michigan, my father came and got us, and I went to Michigan. So I spent time both places, though. I went many summers to Mississippi to visit my aunt and uncle, but I grew up in Ann Arbor.
Okay. But when did you move to the Big Apple?
I graduated from Howard University on a Saturday and moved to New York City on Monday all by myself. People said, you can't do it. You can't do it. I said, watch me. Watch me. And I did.
I am
I don't know why,
loving it.
Eugenia, ever since I was a little kid, I wanted to live in New York City. I would read all those Jackie Suzanne books. And then I read Helen Gurley Brown's Sex and the Single Woman. I'd have a flashlight under the covers reading all that kind of stuff at night, so my mom didn't know I was reading it. And it just made me fall in love with New York City. And, you know, it's been a lot of ups and downs here, but I am as much in love with New York City as I am now, as I was, you know, as this little kid in Ann Arbor, Michigan, wanting to live here. I applied, you know, I'm a Howard grad, but I did also apply to NYU, but then I decided I wanted to go to HBCU, and I went to Howard.
I'm just loving it, but I want to throw in something. Did you wear the scarf dresses that was in one of her books, Helen Gurley Brown's Cosmopolitan?
I did everything by Cosmopolitan. I don't quite remember the scarf dresses, but I lived by Cosmopolitan magazine. And one of the greatest highlights of my life was when I actually met Helen Gurley Brown.
I met her too when I went in the art business at another part of my life. And I found her an amazing woman, very warm, etc. I just wondered about the scarves because my friends and I were trying to make a scarf dress, and we were little. We were trying to make it out of scarves, and it didn't work. Now on to something else. You represented as a publicist the legendary Muhammad Ali, and of course you just said you are represent Michael Spinks. Tell us about your work representing them.
Yeah, with Ali, I used to say champ, and he used to say, "You're calling me tramp," and I said, "No, champ." I was working for a boxing promoter, Murad Muhammad, and he was promoting the Muhammad Ali coin, and so I worked with that. And then I also, years later, worked with the Muhammad Ali cologne. It was, you know, it was a thrill to meet him. I met him while working with Murad, but with Larry Holmes, also former heavyweight champion of the world. There was a time that Larry kind of went out on his own from Don King and went with Murad with these independent productions. And so I was hired for that. And that's how I met Muhammad Ali.
Thank you. Wonderful, wonderful. But I have to take a short break. And we will be right back with our very special guest, Flo Anthony. Thank you for joining us on the Foxworth Theory. Be sure to tune in on Thursday at 9 p.m. on the Foxworth Theory Network.